Consideration. All in favor vote aye. All opposed vote nay. Ayes have it, so ordered. At this particular time, I would like to invite Mayor and Mrs. Young to come forward, please. The Mayor of the City of Atlanta. All rise, please. We thank you for being here today in the new chambers to receive the Mayor's State of Address speech, and thank you very much for coming. Look forward to your continued cooperation.
This is what they call high cotton. I am really and truly impressed. This is the first time I have allowed myself to come over into this section since we started work on it just a little more than a year ago. And it is truly an impressive design and construction. And I want to thank the architects and the builders and the administrative staff that have worked with them for truly creating for us a city council chamber and a city hall annex, which really is representative of the kind of dynamic growth and beauty that we see growing throughout this city. I don't know that I could have imagined it being quite so splendid, but I must say that we are finishing on time, and last I heard, we were still under budget. And so I think we ought to give the administrative staff, the architects, and the builders a good round of applause for their contributions through this facility. I would like to take my time, if you don't mind. This is the last time I'll come before you, and it is an opportunity to sum up 7 of the most exciting years of my life. In fact, I dare say that it was the 7 most exciting years. All of the other things in which I've been involved have, as rewarding as they were, and that includes my involvement with the civil rights movement, my work in the Congress of the United States, my term as ambassador to the United Nations, all pale in comparison to the excitement that I have sensed as I have worked with you and helped to develop this city into the dynamic political, economic, and social institution that we are all elected to represent. And in spite of the fact that we have often disagreed, the truth of it is, in the major accomplishments, we have seldom disagreed on goals. We have only disagreed on tactics, we have only disagreed on style or methods, but we have basically been united in our attempts to move this city forward to the best of which we're capable. And I want to thank the President of the City Council and each and every one of you for making my life really pleasurable for 7 wonderful years, and for helping me to be able to look back on a list of accomplishments that is truly phenomenal. They're not accomplishments for which we can take credit alone, though. They're accomplishments that go back to the vision of Mayor Hartsfield, who started us off in the aviation business, and Ivan Allen, who laid out our expressways and helped us to become a big league city, and Sam Massell, who fought and won a MARGA referendum that gave us a transportation system that is as balanced and developed as anywhere in the world. When you put together our rail, our road, our air travel, There is hardly a city in the world that can match the combination of accessible transportation facilities that we enjoy in this city. And then Maynard Jackson expanding the Hartsfield Ivan Allen Airport into an even bigger and more dynamic institution, and bringing in with that institution the presence of minority business, though that actually started under Sam Bussell with Marta, and the inclusion of everyone in the development and economic growth of this city, insofar as we've been able to do it, is a tribute to the past leadership and the past members of the City Council who have worked with our mayors in helping us to get to the stage that we find ourselves now. When I was elected, I felt as though an era was coming to an end. Indeed, in fact, the banks in this city were all in a state of trauma and shock. There was anxiety about the investment climate, a fear that investment was moving out of our city. There was at the same time a concern and fear that the government funds upon which we had depended so much in the 50s and 60s and 70s were not going to be present for us in the 80s. And it was with some fear and trembling that I declared my candidacy for mayor. But it was in a hope that we might find new alternate sources of revenue, and that somehow together we might chart a course that would continue our city's growth and development in spite of the private sector decline that was characteristic of that moment, and the decline in government funds, which was foreshadowed by a rising government debt burden. We have seen diminishing of government funds. We've almost seen the end of revenue sharing, and we've seen some $30–40 million of government funds that used to come into the city now dwindle to less than $10 million. And yet we've been able to find a way to help our city grow. I contend that that was not just an accident. That as we began to look around, as we began to try to decide how we would meet the shortfall, it was determined that only through attracting private capital could we continue to meet the needs of our citizens. Indeed, I think we have developed something which I chose to call public purpose capitalism. It's something that evolved pragmatically as we have attempted to attract private capital for public purposes. That's quite different than anything that occurred in the 50s and 60s. Though the private sector was involved in those efforts as well, it was largely government money that made possible our growth and development through the dynamic years of the 60s and 70s. But starting with the 80s, more and more of our growth and development had to come from the private sector. And so immediately we embarked upon a strategy which I would like to remind you of, because I think that strategy is going to be even more important in the years to come. Because even though we have tapped private sources of capital, government sources of capital continue to dry up. And there seems to be little or no hope of getting more funds from the federal or the state government. And what we're going to have to continue to do is to evolve this system of public purpose capitalism to attract private capital to public purposes for the good of us all in the development of not only our infrastructure needs, but the total growth of our community. We began with a series of partnerships. We began by trying to pull together the black and white community. We began by trying to build bridges between business and neighborhoods. For while blacks and whites both needed jobs, and the black community was far more attuned to growth and development, there was some concern in the neighborhood movement that too rapid growth and development without concern for the neighborhood values would give us a kind of city that betrayed our dreams and our values. So we spent a lot of time working together, trying to help those in the business community to remember that they too live in neighborhoods, and those in neighborhoods to remember that the only way they can afford to remain in those neighborhoods is to keep the jobs and the economic growth and development which is coming into our city. And so we began a regular dialogue which has continued formally and informally over these 7 years. That dialogue included regular meetings and planning with the Chamber of Commerce and with Central Atlanta Progress. It included periodic meetings with the Action Forum and the Atlanta Business League. It including our developing a common public-private agenda that allowed everybody to feel as though they were a part of the decision-making. And while I've been accused of being sort of Reagan-esque in this, the truth of it is we did not come to this in any ideological fashion. We came to it quite pragmatically. We did not have the money to do the things that had to be done, and we had to find ways to attract the private capital. Fortunately, we did have a business community that was willing to work with us. And we embarked on some things that I think set a tone that gave the business investors not only of this city, but of this nation and the world confidence in our city. One, we voted a sales tax referendum, which said that we would tax everybody that comes into the city to do business, and that the burden of taxation would not be simply on the property owners of our city. We went into a series of private ventures with the airport. We expanded to build a 4th runway and an international terminal, some $155 million worth of expenditures that did not cost the city of Atlanta taxpayers one single penny. We were able to put together a public-private partnership that's simply the guarantee of the debt by the city of Atlanta and a well-mapped business plan by the airport top committee in conjunction with Commissioner Stogner and Commissioner Berry and Carter in the airport, that we were able to sell those bonds at a AAA rating, and we were able to service that debt through the landing fees and through the revenues of the airport. And by launching into that $155 million commitment at no expense to the taxpayers, we sent a signal to the world that we knew how to do business and that this was a good place from which to do business. We developed a one-stop shop, and we combined the permitting efforts of a lot of different agencies into one computerized operation. And we began to make people feel as though we wanted them to be able to do business easily in this city, that we understood that time was money, and that they could go directly to any of our key commissioners and bureau directors, and if not to the mayor's office directly, if there were any problems in regard to their investment. I averaged about 200 business visits a year in my office. That's about 4 businesses a week coming into the office to talk with me personally, and there were others going to the Community Development Office, others going to Atlanta Economic Development Corporation, others going to Gary Holmes in economic development in relationship to underground. But the idea was to get across the message that this government was accessible to business, and that when business persons had any problems in relationship with this government, they didn't have to go through a lot of red tape. They could go directly to the mayor's office, they could go directly to bureau directors and commissioners, they could go to their city council persons, and they would find that there was an attitude there that welcomed new investment and that welcomed a business partnership with government. I think that's paid off. And I think as we look down the list of the billions of dollars of projects and new development, we will see that we have been able to forge a common agenda with the business community that enables us to pursue a public purpose capitalism where together we can attract private capital to pursue public purposes and meet the general public good without directly taxing the homeowner. And that, I think, has been the key to whatever success that we have enjoyed in this city. There's also been a genuine partnership emerging with the state government and the governments of surrounding counties. Thanks in large measure to our involvement with Atlanta Regional Commission and the fact that Ira Jackson has been president of the Georgia Municipal Association for the past few years, that we have enjoyed new working relationships that have enabled us to accomplish things that otherwise might have been impossible. We have convinced, I think, the private sector that there is an honest and efficient government that present here that is able to produce goods and services at the lowest possible cost to the taxpayer. That's the kind of investment climate that we need to continue, for it's a kind of investment climate that has brought wonderful successes, I might say, for everybody. One of the concerns we had at the beginning of this period was, what did you do about the truly disadvantaged? There was, from the very beginning, an awareness of the problems of homelessness. There was also an anticipation of a growing level of people who were unemployed and underemployed. And I guess I took seriously the writings of Dr. William Wilson on the truly disadvantaged, what happened in the 60s was that while all of these programs existed for the poor and did well, the general economy was in decline. And so even though the poor were able to survive, it was very difficult for the poor to make any advances if everybody else's economy was in trouble. And that the first thing toward dealing with the problems of the poor was to establish a climate of overall growth and economic development where there was at least some money coming into the city that could be divided up or that we could share in. And so the new projects and major downtown developments that came about as a result of this new business climate, a new business climate that I must say coincided with the maturation of the metropolitan Atlanta rapid transit system. That as we began to get closer and closer to the airport, as we began to open up the stations moving toward Buckhead and the Lenox station, around each one of those stations, we saw new investments begin to be attracted. We saw a new Marriott Marquis, a new Hotel Ibis, the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, a restored Riches, a renovated Macy's, Marquis 1 and 2 Towers, expanded Atlanta Apparel Mart, the Inforum, bringing to Atlanta a market for computers comparable to the market that we now have in apparel and merchandise goods. And the Apparel Mart and the Merchandise Mart do approximately $11 billion of transactions a year in our city. There's no reason to assume, not to assume, that with the addition of the Inforum, that we will see the numbers mount up as more and more people come to our city to do business, downtown in the Portman complexes. This new City Hall building, a new Fulton County administration complex under the leadership of Chairman Michael Lomax and others, a new public library at Margaret Mitchell Square, the Cytrek Museum at the Civic Center, Zoo Atlanta, a revitalized historic storefronts on Mitchell and Broad Street, expansion of facilities at Georgia State University, a reborn CNN Center, improvements to International Boulevard in connection with the Democratic Convention, the Georgia World Congress Center doubling in size, Historic structures like the Hurt Building, the Candler Building, and the Flatiron Building restored, and a downtown development authority that has sold more than $148 million in bonds to finance 20 downtown projects with a total construction value of over $223 million. $13 million in urban development action grants administered by the Office of Economic Development. A new headquarters just near here of the Georgia Municipal Association. A new Chamber of Commerce building, a renovation of the Healy Building, and the restoration of the Garnett Station Place. In 1989, we expect underground Atlanta with its 220,000 square feet of retail, dining, and entertainment space, and 56,000 square feet of office space, 2 public plazas, 100 specialty shops, 19 food court vendors, and 22 restaurants and nightclubs. It's 3,200 jobs and nearly $5 million per year in new tax revenues. We've already seen that Coca-Cola has committed to join us in that project by developing the world of Coca-Cola in the heart of a restored Depot Plaza. The new Signature Tower by Gerald Hines and Tom Cousins at 191 Peachtree Street. The new Portman Tower at the north end of downtown. The Georgia Dome. The completed state-of-the-art highway system, which we're easing toward completion every day. And as you ease toward completion, you can see how much easier it is to move as we open each new length of improved expressway. The new state market for Georgia farm products and streetscape improvements on Auburn Avenue, as well as a major renovation of the municipal market. We hope to have the Peachtree Streak, a trackless trolley moving around downtown. And all of this is downtown development. As we move to Midtown, we see the IBM Tower, Bell South's Campanile Building, Trammell Crow's 999 Peachtree, the L.J. Hooker Gateway Building in Midtown Plaza, a new Federal Home Loan Bank building and the Peachtree Building, a new High Museum of Art, a new home for the Academy Theater and the Wyndham Hotel, a new Marriott to go up on 14th Street. And in 1989, we expect to see a new headquarters for National Service Industries and the first phase of the AT&T Promenade Complex. Bell South Enterprises will also develop a new building at 1100 Peachtree Street, and L.J. Hooker's billion-dollar office, retail, and entertainment mall, which literally surrounds the 10th Street MARTA station. But all of the development has not just been downtown and midtown. On the south side, we've seen a $6.3 million public investment in the development of Atlanta Industrial Park, leveraging $75 million in private investment, creating 1,500 jobs and over $500,000 in new tax revenues a year. The new Southside Industrial Park has leveraged more than $16 million from the private sector. The sale of 180 acres of the city redevelopment land has allowed the Wilma Trade Port venture to develop the Atlanta Trade Port in a new foreign trade zone, Atlanta Foreign Trade Zone adjacent to Hartsfield. MCA has contracted to build an 18,000-seat amphitheater on city-owned property at the Lakewood Fairgrounds. $160 million redevelopment of the old airport terminal site at Hartsfield into a new Hartsfield Center. And Landorf Corporation has completed a major renovation at Greenbrier Mall, thanks in large measure to the continued work and harassment of Councilman Jim Maddox. Webb Atlanta and the Southeast Financial Corporation are planning a $500 million office, hotel, and commercial project on 400 acres along Camp Creek Parkway. Habersham Investment and Development Corporation is seeking approval for an 870-acre complex, which will include a hotel and conference center and a country club and an upscale single-family residential area. Lang Properties is developing its $100 million Camp Creek Business Center, 1.3 million square feet of office and warehouse distribution space, housed in 22 new buildings. Taylor Mathis constructing both South Meadow, a $200 million bulk distribution center on Camp Creek near Welcome All Road, and Westlake, a $200 million industrial park at Camp Creek and Fulton Industrial Boulevard. Lenox Square development. Lenox Square itself has witnessed two major expansions in the last 7 years. Phipps Plaza has undergone an extensive renovation. The new Atlanta Plaza, Resurgence Plaza, the Ritz-Carlton Buckhead, Lang Properties Lenox Towers, Equitable Properties Monarch Plaza, the Atlanta Financial Center of Robinson Humphrey, the Embassy Suites Hotel, the Westin Lenox and Lenox Building, the Capital City Plaza, a new Days Inn, and a new Nico Hotel is under construction in the first phase of Prudential's billion-dollar office, hotel, and residential complex at the corners of Piedmont and Peachtree Roads. In the heart of Buckhead, Metropolitan Life and Taylor Mathis have completed the first of 4 buildings in their new Buckhead Plaza development. Internationally, much of our success has related to the extensive efforts of our business and government partnership and our ability to attract private money into these developments. The truth of it is we really don't know where all this money comes from, nor does it seem very relevant. We know because they are here with us for a long time and have been very good corporate citizens that the new 191 Peachtree building is largely financed by the Dutch Institutional Holding Company. We know that Lang Properties and all their investments represent an infusion of British capital. We know that L.J. Hooker represents money that comes to us from Australia. But as long as it's serving the purposes of Atlanta citizens, as long as it's being invested in the growth and development of this city, as long as all of our citizens are able to share in the jobs that are produced and the benefits that accrue from this kind of abundant investment, I say God bless it and thanks for it. I really think this is a return on our investment. But none of these people had very much money at the end of the Second World War. And it was the American taxpayers that invested in their redevelopment. And much of Japan's redevelopment, much of the redevelopment in Britain, in Canada, and in Holland was financed by low-interest investments and contributions from the Atlanta taxpayers. And so as these countries and as businesses in those countries get on their feet and begin to look for safe havens for their newly earned dollars, and as they look for a place to park their money for long-term security and stability and profit, I think we should be proud that they have chosen Atlanta. Indeed, they've chosen Atlanta to the tune of about $68.5 billion since I've been mayor. And hardly a single one of our competitors, if we have any competitors anymore, can anywhere come close to that kind of new investment attraction. I think that this investment of foreign firms that brings more than 1,000 foreign firms into the metro area, representing an investment of some $3 billion and a creation of over 50,000 jobs, has been basically very wholesome for our city. We've worked very hard to get it. We've had periodic meetings with the Chamber, both the Chamber and the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the Action Forum, and a wide variety of local companies have worked very hard to invite people to come into this marketplace to do business. For we have seen that as a way of attracting much-needed capital and generating many new jobs. 283 foreign companies have United States headquarters in the state of Georgia, investing $2.5 billion and employing 30,939 people. The total foreign investment in the state of Georgia now approaches some $8 billion. And the reasons for doing business in Atlanta is that this is a very good place to reach the entire U.S. market. It's also a place where you get a 15% increase in take-home pay for employers because of our lower personal income taxes and living costs being lower than other major cities. The cost of living in Atlanta is 32% below that of New York City and about 5% lower than that in Dallas. Housing costs are, on an average, 18% lower than the national average for metropolitan areas. And the cost of doing business per day is 99th out of the top 100 cities in America. But I think most valuable to our city in its attraction of business is the Atlanta airport, where foreign business has realized that executive time, their most valuable commodity, can be maximized by the easy access to more than 200 cities a day and cities in some 25 different countries each day. And that's why we have seen not only 29 foreign banks settle here, but 36 consulates, 13 foreign chambers of commerce, 6 foreign tourism offices. There are 12 international airlines operating direct, non-stop flights between Hartsfield and 25 foreign cities. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have become the city designated by the United States Olympic Committee as jobs has been basically very wholesome for our city. We've worked very hard to get it. We've had periodic meetings with the Chamber, both the Chamber and the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau.